Hey, everybody. We've only got 5 games to talk about this week, but we won more than we lost, which is great. The first pitch in the Sunday night game is literally right now, and it's against Kershaw, so probably better that, we don't have that to talk about. But we'll have plenty of time to talk about how Chase Utley is a human piece of garbage, so that's starting right now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
That cheeriness after what
the
you
cheeriness.
just said.
I know. Look. Sometimes your heart is filled with hate. You know.
And
Sometimes
the Mets song will save you.
Yeah, the Mets bring me right back down. This is the karaoke version, so that I could sing along if I wanted to. But don't worry, I'm not.
Next time.
Anyway, Christian Bladt here on Mets Wrap 360 on Twitter at ChristianDMZ, and to my left, Andrea Fasano, our recovering Yankee fan.
You love
and
that.
Matt Ritter on assignment. Last week was his first show, already on assignment, but I'm sure that assignment's going to yield some great information. Anyway, there's so much to talk about the Mets this weekend, but I'll start with the most fun part about the weekend, which was the fact that at Citi Field they're celebrating the 30th anniversary of the 1986 Mets. Thus, this shirt that I'm wearing, the 1986 World Championship t-shirt, and some great festivities, a lot of excitement, and they're 50-50 as to whether or not the game matched up the excitement, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So the way that the week started was this all-important series against the Washington Nationals. We talked last week that the week before the series against the Nats had not gone as well. And this one started off with a great game because Bartolo Colon, obviously trying to impress both of his families, turned it around, and he had a great game against Gio Gonzalez. The score in that game was 7-1, and that was in no small part due to David Wright with a 3-run home run. He was my player of the week last week. I wonder, could there be a repeat? But you'll have to wait till the end of the show to find out. So, look, that was great. That was very exciting. Andrea, your thoughts on the series against the Nats, or that game in particular, whichever you'd prefer to start with.
Well, yeah, I just kind of clump them together because,
Sure.
It's so funny. We move
It's like you
so
like to
fast.
binge watch the games on the MLB app.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But no, actually, the way I got to watch a lot of them this week,
Right.
and like you said, there were only 5, but for the beginning, I was really pumped to see the Nats them play the Nats, especially because it's the second round already.
Yeah.
And so quickly after they had just played them, and
yeah, it's kind
so.
of I mean, the way ever since they unbalanced the schedule not too long ago, where you play your division 19 times, very often you're playing basically 6 times or sometimes 7 times in 10 days.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it got off to a great start. That was very exciting. Not only did David Wright hit the home run, Neil Walker hit the home run, and I think Neil Walker was Matt's player of the week last week.
It was mine.
It was yours.
Yeah, he agreed with you with David Wright. I said, hey, what about undercover?
Spoiler alert, Matt has someone else for this week.
Yes, he does.
He sent it to me, and I'll make sure that we share it. But again, at the end, who's the player of the week? You're going to have to wait and find out. Anyway, so that first game was great. Really not much to say about it because it was so good. And Gio Gonzalez looked terrible, and you're like, that's what you want. Because Gio Gonzalez, the pitcher for the Nats, he can look great, or he can look terrible. He never looks mediocre. Either he's, you're not going to get a hit off of him, or maybe 1 or 2, obviously, or it's going to be batting practice. And it was nice to see that Gio showed up.
Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but that's what I liked about that whole series, because I felt like, it was a game by game.
Yeah.
And then now, once the Dodgers series started, it's like, whoosh. Like, what happened? Was the Nats like really only just the beginning of this week? Because that felt like a month ago.
It feels a long time ago.
Yes.
It was a lot of Chase Utley RBIs ago, but we'll talk about that later.
It was a long
time ago. But so then we have game 2, which we talked a lot about last week. There was a lot of excitement. Harvey was going to get the ball again after his bad outing against the Nats. And so there he is against the Nats again in D.C. And the website we always promote every week, the 7 Line, we were very proud that they organized an outing. I think it ended up being about 450 people, but that's literally that's like 36 hours notice. People are like, yep, we're going down to D.C. And a lot of excitement going into the game. If you watch the game, a lot of very vocal Mets cheers. early in the game.
Right.
My friend John, my best friend John, who at some point he will probably Skype into the show. He's in Mexico City today. He was not Skyping in from Mexico City, but he was at that game. So this was at the beginning part of the game. We actually have a little video, and by little video, I mean I think it's like 8 seconds, but it's great. It's worth sharing. We'll also, as long as I can figure out how to do it, we'll tweet it out. Andrea might have to help me, but we'll send it out there. But anyway, so let's take a quick listen and/or look at this video from the game on Tuesday night. Oh, it's sideways. I forgot.
We're gonna have to teach him how to film.
And that was it. There's a huge "Let's go, Harvey," and he's like, "Oh yeah, I took 3 videos. This is the best one." I'm like, I kind of want the other ones, to tell you the truth. But anyway, and you heard the "Let's go, Harvey" a lot of the time, and he looked pretty good the first 2 times through the order, which continues to be the problem. Then there was that 3rd time through the order.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, not what you want.
Right.
He gave up 5 home runs. And I don't know actually that I did that right. Oh yeah, that was the game where Harvey gave up 5 home runs. And you're just like, what? And guys like Ryan Zimmerman, they can hit them, and Daniel Murphy, obviously brings his A game. Ben Revere hits a home run. You're like, okay, this is probably a problem. Ben Revere hitting a home run is literally like Paul Revere running through the streets saying the British are coming. Ben Revere hitting a home run is like your pitcher is crumbling. You got to get him off the mound. So it's really disappointing because there was so much good feeling, so much support for Matt Harvey, and he did look good to start. He looked good enough to start the game. And then again, it all unravels. And we talked about it last week. It's got to be partially mental, and at this point, I mean, there's definitely a physical issue, but whatever it is. So, Andrea, as you watch that game, having seen the good game to start the week, then we have that one. What do you think as you look at Matt Harvey? And again, just as you can relate to any kind of competitor when you just, for whatever reason, you can't get it done.
Yeah, no, totally. And it's funny because last week, I was defending him big time because I just was like, we're being too hard on him because he was so good and not giving him a chance. And it's funny because all you kept hearing the announcers saying was really, hey, he can't do it the further and further he gets into the batting order or how many times he sees these guys. So it's funny that he can last, it's not so much even the innings so much it is as the batting order, like how much fast it comes around and that kind of thing. I don't know. I felt bad for him. Now I kind of feel like he needs to take a lot of ownership and really look at himself. And I don't know if he's doing the work in the sort of say, I don't want to get bashed about this.
No, but
you know what I mean? There's certain times where you need to turn around and be like, what is it myself? He's not talking to the media about it. He's making other people speak up for him, which I don't really think is fair because nobody has a clue what's going on.
Right. And Noah Syndergaard was like, I'm actually really tired of being asked about Matt Harvey.
Right.
And then later in the week, he was like,
his catchers, his managers.
By last night, Syndergaard was probably like, hey, why don't you ask me about Matt Harvey instead? But anyway, we'll talk about that.
Absolutely. So I just feel like they really need to take a look at it. I don't think he should really be thrown into an order again.
I don't think he should be pitching tomorrow, which he is.
Why would he?
I mean, especially with Syndergaard having only thrown 3 innings last night.
Right.
Might as well trot him out there.
If he's not suspended and he can play, why not?
He wouldn't be suspended for tomorrow because even if there was anything, But anyway... but they feel, I saw the story today. They feel like they kind of know what it is. And it's like, okay, if you say so. But if you know what it is now and he has another bad outing, then you're just showing how stupid you are. Longtime Mets fans know that the former pitching coach, Rich Peterson, was just like, oh yeah, Victor Zambrano, I can fix what's wrong with him in 20 minutes. And it took years and he never got that settled. Right. So, the overconfidence from the pitching staff, not the pitching staff, but the pitching coaches, the personnel, you're just like, I don't feel good about that.
See, that's interesting because I was reading some stuff online and I felt
Rick Peterson, by the way, I don't want to get tweeted at. Go ahead, sorry.
They were saying that the problem is with the fact that he can't last very long as far as going through the batting order. Okay, but is that really an issue? Is that something you can really approach and say, okay, so this is how we're going to take it batter by batter?
Yeah.
And so they said they're going to have him not just pitching, just him and the catcher. They're going to have him pitching against hitters.
Yeah, they're actually the simulated games are going to be a little bit more simulated.
Right.
I look, if it helps, great, but I feel like it's a short-term fix if that's what you need to do. Like, you can't have him pitch a simulated game between every start.
And I think it's something that once you're frustrated as a player and you're in your own head like that, you need like either a vacation or something or someone to really like snap out of that. And maybe it's like a muscle memory where it's just clicking because that's huge in sports.
And they said they never had any plans to send him down to the minors, but you send him out to Vegas for a few days because that's where AAA is. You know, he's gonna, you know, he'll strike out like the Portland Beavers. You know, maybe he'll have a no hitter. You know, it'll be a good feeling, and then be like, all right, it's just a little confidence builder. You know, I mean, there have been a few instances of this happening, but I remember Steve Traxel going down to the minors, and he actually did throw a no hitter. So that was great, but it could help. But I don't know. I feel like they think, you know what? They know Matt's psyche way better than we do. So maybe they feel like what they have to do is just kind of, you know, play it. This is the only way that it's going to work. Because if you send him down there, maybe, you know, he turns into a head case or more of a head case.
I do agree that that's opening a whole other can of worms. I don't think that's what should happen necessarily because, like we said, he starts out fine.
Yeah.
So, and even looks a little...
I mean, you know, look, he got further into this game. The 2 starts ago, it was like in the 2nd inning he was out. You know, he looked good into, I believe it was into the 5th inning. So it's like, all right, that is progress, but it's definitely like the old saying, almost only counts in horseshoes. You know, he almost was better. Well, he was better for a while. Well, it's like, unless you're going to take him out after 4 innings where he doesn't qualify for a win, you know, I don't know what the solution is there.
Right.
Anyway, so that game was so frustrating.
For it. Isn't the whole point just for the Mets to qualify for
Well, yeah,
one?
but for his sake, he needs to, you know, he doesn't want to
course.
get yanked and be like, yeah, you're out after 2 runs through the order. So I don't know what's going to happen, and no one does, but all indications, we'll know tomorrow morning West Coast time, tomorrow afternoon East Coast time. We'll know because he's going to pitch against the White Sox, and we'll see. You know, we'll see what we get. And I'm a Matt Harvey fan. He is very arrogant and can come off unlikable, but I still like his ability. And you start to feel bad, and you know what? You don't want an experience like this to humble him too much. He needs to go back to being the Dark Knight and being really cocky and just like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and win.
Because I think there's a difference between arrogance and confidence in your playing abilities and then an arrogance that's kind of just like a total dickhead. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, can I say
I don't even know. I assume you can. Yeah. There's a world of difference between being confident.
I think it's sports related, and he's like that kind of. I don't know him.
No, don't know him. But. Yeah, exactly. There's confidence when you can deliver. You know, your ability lives up to that confidence, and then there's being like 43-year-old Alex Rodriguez, where you still kind of strut around like that.
And he's just always an asshole.
Right. Exactly. Always was. Always will be. Anyway, so. All you can do after a game like that is turn the page. Matt Harvey, unfortunately, it's a 5-day-long turn of the page where he has to wait. But then Steven Matz comes out the next day, and it's only a few hours later because that was a day game in D.C., and he outdueled Tanner Roark, who has usually pitched very well against the Mets, and it was a 2-0 game. And you're like, that's what you need. And Steven Matz has been great. You know, we talked a little bit last week. He missed a couple starts, but when, you know, it's one of those old things, you know, hey, when he can get on the field, he's been great. And, you know, hopefully we get to see plenty more of him throughout the season because with him, you kind of have a couple of guys who are capable of stopping the bleeding, proverbial bleeding, because not the literal bleeding, but like Syndergaard and Matz are both able to be like, all right, well, hold on, let me take charge of this, and you know,
composure.
Yeah, exactly. So it was great, and I don't know. I mean that game was it was just well played top to bottom, and you know they're able to get on the road, head back home with good feelings because it's like the Harvey game was bad, but you win 2 out of 3 against the Nats, and then you go home, and you're tied for first place at that point. So, well, actually not until after the off day, but you know, whatever, the way that it all works out. You're tied for first place by the time you take the field the next time. So you're able to have a good feeling about it. That's the key. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and it's funny because that game, you wind up getting excited about the fact that they win the series, especially after what they just had gone through by losing the last one. But, you know, you think of everything else. I always bring this up. There's so many more pieces to the game.
Yes.
And I know that pitching is one of the most important. It's just like, well, what happens to the rest of everybody? Like, where are you, you know?
Right. And look, you know, if
Offense-
Matt Harvey gives up 5 runs in 5 innings, but you score 10 runs, it's not really that big of a problem.
Right.
Unfortunately, the Nets were the one that just kept teeing off. So, you know, and it's, I don't know.
That's what seems to happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. You know, it's like, there was a start that Steven Matz made last year out here at Dodger Stadium that I went to, and he pitched a great game. But also the Mets were up 8-0, so it's a lot easier to pitch a great game when when you get a lot of runs scored. You're like, oh yeah, I could probably be a little bit trickier with my pitches. And anyway, so look, it was a good feeling. It went into that. And then you have an off day. You're like, all right, get to calm down a little bit. And then on Friday, they match up against the Dodgers, which the series against the Dodgers out here in LA only a few weeks ago, they split the 4 games. So each team won 2. And you're like, all right, that didn't really tell us anything. That told us that maybe it told us that the Dodgers were playing a little bit over their head and the Mets were, struggling, unfortunately, in a couple of spots. And again, that was one of those really bad Bartolo Colon starts. But, obviously he has other things on his mind.
Right.
So you go out on Friday night and all the hype is for the Dodgers' young 19-year-old pitcher, Julio Urias. And you have to feel for a kid who's 19 who gets to make his first major league start in New York with guys like Curtis Granderson and Yoenis Cespedes in the lineup, guys who've won batting titles and whatnot. So so that's what you have to contend with. And there was all this excitement about like how good he was going to be. And, he'd had all these score. I think he had 27 scoreless innings in AAA heading into that game, which is great. But Yoenis Cespedes isn't there in AAA, and Neil Walker's not there, and Asdrubal Cabrera, the caliber is so much higher. It would have been nice for him, and I'm showing some magnanimity towards a Dodgers pitcher who was called up at the age of 19, the tender age of 19.
Tender age.
He could have been, it would have been better served if he'd been called up for a home start at Dodger Stadium, maybe against the D-backs or hopefully the Padres, where you could really show off what you can do. However, that's not what happened to the young man. And as a Mets fan, I can't say I feel that bad for him because, the focus was, it's funny because you live in Los Angeles, the focus was in the LA media, the post-game show on the Dodgers channel was on, he had 3 strikeouts. And those 3 strikeouts were great.
Stop.
And it's true, they were good strikeouts. But he pitched 2.2 innings. His ERA was 10.13 after it. He got sent down the next day. So now his Major League ERA is 10.13. Look, he'll be back. I'm sure he will, of course, play in, he'll probably get more starts this season. Definitely in the future, he's probably going to be great. But it was not a positive experience, and he can't come away with that like, oh yeah, that was great. You say all the right things, but he just didn't look good.
But here's the thing: it's so easy to talk about that after the fact.
Yes.
So the whole day leading up to that game, I listened to AM radio, and just as I'm driving around LA, as we do in LA, just spent my day in the car.
Of course you did.
That's all I'm listening to, and everybody speculating on this kid, 19 years old, being brought up. Is this a time? Is this the thing to do for the Dodgers? It's so much easier to speculate after the fact.
Oh yeah,
and be like, no.
Well, I mean,
because of the way the game went.
Before the game, I was like, he's 19, he shouldn't be called up.
And that's interesting because I might have, it was funny after listening to all these commentators talk about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't form an opinion because they were talking about how well he was doing down there and how he was wiping players out and like hitters out and just killing it in the minor leagues. But then they would set it up as this game being so massive that I think they were like hyping it up too much almost.
That's very possible, yeah.
And on the other hand, they made a really good point about the fact that you're going against a team, well, especially the Mets, not especially the Mets, but you're going against a team where nobody on the Mets has ever faced this kid before.
Sure.
They don't know who he is. So that's kind of unsettling as a hitter, but
you can always
we stepped up.
You can always make the other argument, which is he's never faced any of these batters,
Exactly.
and he's never I'm going to say like the worst batter in the Mets lineup, starting lineup, was probably Eric Campbell. All right. So even the best player he's seen in AAA isn't as good as Eric Campbell. And then, like I'm saying, you have at-bats by David Wright, Curtis Granderson, Neil Walker, Asdrubal Cabrera, and again, Yoenis Cespedes. I can't stress enough that having to face him in your first start, nobody did you any favors.
Right. And
so,
that's all I have to say. The fact that, unbelievable that they came back, but the fact that we put numbers on the board from him, good. Yeah. Okay, as a Mets fan, great. Like, I don't need to say one more thing about the kid and that decision kind of deal. You know?
There's a lot more to say about that game. So,
exactly.
the fact that he gave up 5 runs, you feel pretty good about it. And by the way, as I mentioned in the open, there is a game, as we're recording this on Sunday night, there is a game being played right now. And a lot of people have already tweeted like, "Yeah, I'm watching the Mets. I'm going to watch you guys later." We get it. We don't, you could have put us on and the game on in the background, but that's all right. We're not going to take
commercials.
We're not going to take it personally.
Fast forward.
But in case you aren't, if you're watching us live and you don't have the game on, it's the top of the second, no score.
Okay.
It looked like they had a leadoff double against Kershaw, which that's great. Probably going to be all you get tonight, and you didn't cash it. But anyway, this is still a long game, and as long as we're
so negative about this game.
About Kershaw right now, in the playoffs when the Mets played the Dodgers last year, I was the exact opposite. I was like, nope. Not Kershaw in the playoffs, but he's on a great run right now. It's really hard to,
target that.
It's not going to be hard to get a run against him,
right?
But it's going to probably be hard to get 2. So, you got to try and get him when you can.
No, he's phenomenal.
As we saw on Friday night, after 8 great innings and the score is 5-1. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter that the score is 5-1. The hated Chase Utley comes up to bat, and this isn't even what I hate him for. Obviously, Mets fans hate him because he broke. He broke Tejada's leg in the playoffs in Game 2 of the NLDS. That's why we don't like him. It's not like we don't like. It's not we hate you because you're always good. We already hated him because he was good with the Phillies. Because every time he came into town with the Phillies, he would always, probably have a couple home runs and a few RBI. So the expectation was like, hey, when's DeGrom gonna hit him? Well, he didn't hit him. And then when he came up with the bases loaded, you're like, yeah, you probably should have hit him. Yeah. You would have just that would have just been 1 run right there. Actually, that wasn't DeGrom. But anyway, and it's an interesting thing to talk about before we talk about Chase Utley's at-bat is that outing by the closer, Familia. He comes in and with a 4-run lead, a non-save situation, and I don't care what team you're a fan of. I was talking to my father-in-law, I was a Dodger fan, and like this happens to Kenley Jansen, the Dodgers closer. If you come in and it's not a save situation, you don't have the intensity, you don't take it as seriously, and I'm not quite sure why Terry thought like, oh, we're gonna bring Familia in here. Maybe he knew how badly Saturday's game was gonna go, so he wasn't gonna have to use him. I mean, there had been an off day on Friday.
Was he a psychic?
Hey, Terry knows things, all right? He's been around the game for a long time, longer than almost anybody else, except for, I think, Dusty Baker. They're the 2 oldest managers in the league. But anyway, so, yeah, it's just like, well, this seems questionable, bringing Familia in here. And then, of course, Chase Utley comes up to the plate with the bases loaded. And, of course, they've already, Familia's already given up 1 run, so it's 5-2, and then he gives up the tying runs, and so then all of a sudden, a game that was well in hand, 5-1, within the space of like 10-15 minutes, it's tied 5-5, and it's kind of like a debilitating feeling because you're like, oh my god, what happened?
Yeah,
If it's a 3-2 game or a 1-0 game and all of a sudden you're tied, you're like, well, all right, that's fine.
Right.
But a 5-1 game,
5 runs.
Your closer didn't need to be in there. And I don't know, I didn't want to watch the pitch selection, but I'm like, he probably could have thrown something else, Anyway, so that happens, and obviously Chase Utley's feeling good about himself, and the Dodgers are feeling good about all of themselves. And you're just like, all right, well, maybe we're in for a long one. All right, so, then one of the guys in the Dodger bullpen who, this seems to be what they do, the Dodger bullpen, 2 pitches, Granderson, walk-off home run, game's over. Happy ending. We all lived happily ever after. 6-5. Game you didn't have to come from behind, but, once you're in that situation, the Grandy Man, as he used to be called when he was with the Yankees, he took care of it, and that was a great feeling. So the good feelings for the Dodgers after their 19-year-old pitcher comes up and struggles, they feel good late in the game for a few minutes, and then it's a bad feeling until the next day because you didn't win.
Yeah,
and that's what Granderson does. He had not done one of those walk-off home runs. They made sure to tell me 10 years. Since 2000, I think it's 2005, so I think it's 11 years. He hadn't done one, I think, since his rookie year, which is crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah, and,
but it's also,
and there he was.
I mean, he's still been doing well. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, his average does not indicate how the quality of at-bats he's having. He's getting on base. He's working pitchers, and yes, he's going to strike out.
I'm telling you, I watch him even when he gets out. You see him; he has his head down. He hustles off the field.
He always does.
He is just like a true baseball player, and he is so passionate about the game, and you see it in every action that he takes. And he's just always there. I feel like for the, you can rely on him. Even like I'm saying, this is him being out and he just hustles off the field and he's like still focused and you see his face. I just love him. I love him.
Yeah, no, he's great. But you have a good feeling because of him.
Yes, exactly. But this is also funny because think about it. If he doesn't come in and do what he did, our conversation about the 19-year-old, does it go any differently if the Dodgers win this game?
Well, yeah, because they're like, oh, he struggled, but his team bailed him out. It took them, 2 hours, but
Isn't
they
that
eventually
funny?
bailed him. Yeah, no, exactly. And as we talk about with these 3-game series that you're able to put a lot of intensity, a lot of intense focus on, especially when you talk about it every week like we do. If you win 2 or lose 2, it's really that swing game. It changes whether or not you're like, well, that was a good series, or that was a disaster.
Right.
So
what I wanted to tell you was this is pretty personal, and I'm really proud.
Please share with the audience.
My cousin is on the Dodgers farm down in Oklahoma.
I know. Oh, is he?
I texted him to see if he's like buddies.
Is he buddies with Urias?
Yeah.
Is he? Is he on the team, or does he work for
I don't know if they were playing today, but I haven't heard back from him.
So he's on the Oklahoma City
catcher.
Dodgers. What's his name?
Vinny DeFazio.
Look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
Go Vin.
All right. So, until he gets called up to the majors.
Yeah, he was in Arizona, practicing with them.
So we can root for him until he gets called up to the Dodgers. Then we can't root for him anymore. You can keep that inside, but on the show we can't.
Still will.
So that's great. Anyway.
So moving on.
So we have the, anytime you win the first game in a series, you're like, great. All right, we're not getting swept. That's a great feeling. And especially in a series when you know that the third game you're going to face one of the best pitchers in the game. To have lost the first one, you're like, well, all right, this is going to be tough. So it was great. And you're like, you have Thor himself. You have Noah Syndergaard on the mound on Saturday. And that was the game where they had the big 86 Mets ceremony before the game. Almost everybody was there. Obviously, Gary Carter, rest in peace, he wasn't there. But and I think 1 or 2 other people weren't able to be there. But, obviously, great feeling in the ballpark. People were able to watch on Mets.com. And I'm sure people were really excited for a game pitched by Thor because you're like, this is great. This is going to be a good feeling. He's going to throw 100 a couple of times. And he did. He just didn't get to throw 100 nearly enough times.
As he wanted or as we wanted?
As anybody wanted. Because he gets ejected in the 3rd inning for throwing behind Chase Utley, which if you're going to get ejected, you might as well have hit him.
Right.
And it's infuriating that he got ejected for throwing behind, because not that long ago, if you're a Mets fan, you'll remember in 2002, Sean Estes threw behind Roger Clemens because it was the whole big World Series throwing the bat at Piazza. And finally, there was going to be an at-bat that Clemens was going to have in the National League, because that's one of the worst things about the American League. Your pitchers can never be held accountable for the way they behave because they don't have to swing the bat. Right. So it was finally the Mets were going to play them, and Clemens was going to actually have a start at Shea Stadium. And Sean Estes throws behind him. Clemens kind of tips his hat. The throwing behind is basically saying, just so you know, I could have knocked you down. And
left a mark.
If Syndergaard wanted to hit Chase Utley, he could have hit him in the eye, blinded him with a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. Now he just throws behind you and is like, by the way, we know you're a jerk. All right, great. Now, that didn't go so well because he got ejected. And watching Terry Collins was so furious because he's like, he didn't even hit him. And I don't know, had there been warnings before that game? Had there been warnings before the earlier game? I don't even know that. But it's so infuriating that he got ejected for not hitting a guy, you know? And yes, someone who has the kind of control and command of his pitches as Syndergaard, that's not an accident. But he's going to say it slipped.
He did say that.
Of course. Well, you have to say that or you get fined, sometimes suspended.
I watched it over 7 times. Well, of course. And you don't want everybody after you and kind of just making it a whole other thing.
Right.
And amazing that people aren't just by him saying that. But come on, I watched it. I literally kept replaying. And you just hear Joe Buck's voice over and over. And I'm like, he goes, did he just get ejected? Like, you just kept hearing that?
Even Joe Buck.
But I'm watching the pitch, and I'm like, that is amazing that he came so close.
Yeah.
But right behind him, and I'm sorry, the reason it didn't slip, that ball was still probably 90-something an hour.
Exactly.
Because that was amazing still pitch.
And the way that, and I'm not even talking about old-time baseball, the way that things were. You used to be able to hit guys, take care of your own business, and it was fine, just don't, storm the field. I'm talking a moment ago about 2002, not that long ago, throwing behind Roger Clemens. Clemens kind of tips his cap. He's like, all right, I get it. He takes his base. It's fine. Whatever. But getting ejected, and Joe Buck drives me crazy because he's part of this very sort of like very modern metrosexual PC broadcaster from the Bob Costas school of throwing behind is just as bad as throwing. No, it's not. You didn't hit him, and it's just like
he agreed though.
No, he did.
Yeah,
and that's why it surprised me.
Okay,
I was just like, well, even Joe Buck says it.
Yes,
Joe Buck is the
everybody said it.
Yeah, and
Doc Gooden
was there in the booth.
That
was great. I know that Doc's like, oh man, I would have blinded him. He didn't say that, but Doc's like, oh, I know what I would have done.
And the fact they all agreed that he should have gotten a warning, hands down.
I mean, the warning, which, that does kind of alter the way you pitch once you get the warning. So, I don't know. That's why it's infuriating. And it's made more infuriating for the way the rest of the game played out.
Yeah, well, of course.
They end up losing 9-1.
And the fact that Utley scores.
Chase Utley has a career game.
Yeah, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, like that's more RBI than he had, I think, after he got traded to the Dodgers from the Phillies last year. That one game, basically. And maybe it's not the one game, but those 2 games, he had like 3 good at-bats. But it's so infuriating. It's a disgusting game. And you're just like, well, I guess you can't dwell on it.
Right.
But it was hard not to, because it all went back to like, why did he get thrown out? And I have friends who were like writing on Facebook like, well, Syndergaard, I hope it was worth it. I'm like, no, if he hit him, they would be, I hope it was worth it. It was like, no. And I don't know. Since when is it okay to break the leg of a player on the opposing team and not be punished for it? MLB decided not to suspend him. All right, fine. And it was the playoffs, so it was hard, The Mets suspended all the Dodgers by beating them in the playoffs, which that's what it really came down to.
Well, and that's what David Wright said. He said the same thing. I thought this issue was done and put to bed, when we beat them in the series and moved on in going for gold. You know what I mean? But honestly, something that I noticed that I would love to know your opinion on.
Sure.
Utley struck out after that.
Yes, he did.
I think that was on purpose. And I'm not defending him.
That he struck out on purpose?
Yes,
okay.
Because he watched it. And I just don't think then you go against these pitchers and you get 2 home runs. I just don't. So I think that was his kind of nod, like you said,
oh, that's interesting.
Clemens nod.
I don't know. I mean, it's a theory that I can understand where it comes from.
It's a definite theory,
but he's such a fierce competitor. Where he's the kind of guy that you want on your team. I understood why Phillies fans loved him so much. Yeah, of course.
And he definitely is not someone who's going to show respect in that regard.
No, of course.
But that's why I think that maybe he did it and he didn't make any other notions, looks, anything about it. But I just saw that and I was like, there's no way this guy just let that pitch go. Yeah. And didn't even try to swing at it.
Right. No, I think that Utley really got taken out of the moment. And,
True.
And then he was focused again as soon as he was back out on the field. But,
why would Syndergaard do that the second time up? He struck him out the first time.
I think he didn't want to start the game with that.
Like that? Well, thank God, because that would have been...
Yeah, well, it wouldn't have really made a difference. But yeah, it's true. But no, because if he hit him on the first pitch, then he
That's
might as
it.
well have started tonight.
I know.
You know, it would have been fine. And that was the
kind
great.
of crazy though that he can take that into his own hands.
Yeah.
As a pitcher and
Look,
just.
I don't think that Syndergaard didn't have a conversation with anybody. You know, I don't. I mean, maybe it wasn't even this start. You know, I mean, I get why they didn't hit Utley when they were at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
They also didn't hit him on Friday. You know, and I was just like, you know, DeGrom can hit somebody. You know, and it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, Syndergaard was the guy to do it, which, as we saw with the brush back pitch in Game 3 of the World Series that you know, Mike Moustakas you know, started crying about in the dugout. But anyway,
And Thor is so liked that it's like not
I love
even gonna
Thor,
matter.
and the great thing about Thor is that Syndergaard tweeted today. He's like, just so everybody knows, I'm available in the bullpen if you need me today. This was today. He tweeted it. Hashtag LGM for Let's Go Mets.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, that's great. That's exactly what you want to see. And yes, he should be available. And like I said before, why not let him start on Monday?
Yeah.
You know, I don't
I
even know
agree
how
with
many
that.
pitches he threw, but it was in the third inning. It wasn't a lot. But I don't know. Maybe you just have him go on his regular day. But I don't know. I think it would be exciting. And here's what it comes down to is that the game ends because the Nationals had also lost. The Mets are still tied for first place. And the Dodgers are barely over 500. So, you know, who really
Right.
is feeling better about their team? By the way, after 2 innings on Sunday night, nothing as we go to the top of the third. No score still.
I know. I was trying to get it over here, but
Yeah, well, that's why you have to get the app on your phone. Everybody who
that's all
doesn't
you.
have the
rely on
MLB
you.
At Bat app on your phone, just for the scoreboard, it's great. Just for the quick look to see what's going on. But also, if you have the MLB TV subscription, you can listen to the games, which I do a lot of times. I'll play it in my car, or you can watch them if I'm sitting somewhere wasting time with free internet. But anyway, so that's what we have to look forward to, is what can the Mets get done against Clayton Kershaw. No small order, so we'll see if they can scratch out a run, or hey, maybe even 6 against the bullpen. But you know, it's the game that when you looked at the series, or at least when I did, I'm like, well, they're going to lose Sunday, so let's see what happens. But what's great is that they're playing the White Sox the next 3 days, and Robin Ventura, the White Sox manager, former Met, loved Robin Ventura. He didn't do this to serve the Mets, but it did serve the Mets. He pitched Chris Sale today, who was, I forgot, I meant to write down how well Sale had pitched. But you know what? He's great, and we're not going to have to face him tomorrow now. And we're not seeing him in the series. We're getting Jose Quintana and Matt Harvey tomorrow, Matt Latos and Steven Matz, Miguel Gonzalez and Jacob deGrom. You're getting 3 guys for the White Sox who are not their best guys, and they're not particularly great pitchers. Matt Latos with the Padres and then off to the Reds, and you know, there were flashes where you're like, oh, he's going to be good. No, he's not. He's not that good. So you can feel good about that series because you don't have. And just imagine if tonight they faced Kershaw and tomorrow they faced Chris Sale, then I think the batters would be all screwed up for the rest of the week because they would have just, you know, had
Given up?
Well, they would have 2 guys that they couldn't get anything going against,
Yeah.
you know, and you overswing, you try and hit the 6-run home run every at bat, which Chase Utley somehow can do. But I don't know. So I think that'll be a good series. And again, as we selfishly talked about, and we talked about this after the game, when you live on the West Coast, you're like, oh, I love those 10 a.m. games. Yeah. But, you know, people with jobs probably hate them.
I know.
But, you know, when you have a lot of time to yourselves, and, you know, my full-time job is with my little 10-month-old Felix.
As daddy.
Yeah. So, you know, some father daddy, some daddy baby Mets time. That's going to be great tomorrow. Yeah, and tomorrow's my wife's birthday, but I
birthday.
feel like she'll be okay to let us watch the game.
I think
I'll
so.
be like, "Mommy, go take a nap." She'll be like,
Because
"It's
then
only
she knows
it's only
she'll
10
get
a.m."
whatever else she wants the rest of the
She'll have a
day.
lot of things she needs to get done. So that'll
Very
be great.
good.
And then there'll be an off day on Thursday. So however that goes,
Take a breather.
deep breath, and then they're going to be at the Marlins. And The Marlins are, their record, they're not the surprise team like the Phillies have been, but the Marlins have been pretty good, and they have great pitchers, and they have one of the best hitters in the game with Giancarlo Stanton. He and Bryce Harper are kind of like 1 and 1A in terms of what they're capable of and what they bring to a team. So that those can be tough games, and I'm assuming that these will be the starters for the Marlins. Justin Nicolino, Jose Fernandez, which he's the tough one. That's the stat I wrote down. Jose Fernandez is 6-0 with a 1.89 ERA in his last 6 starts. Wow. So you're going to at least see those two guys. And it's going to be a little bit of a tall order to get things going. But
I'm excited for that one.
A lot of times the Mets play well in Miami, and a lot of times the Marlins don't play well in Miami. I'm fascinated by that ballpark, and we will definitely talk about it if their crazy new age artsy like home run contraption with the Dolphins plays into the game at all. It's insane, but we'll talk about that next week. So as we look ahead, I guess we have between now and our next show, we actually have 7 games that will happen. I'm going to go out on a not much of a limb and say that the Mets are going to win 5 of those 7 games. And so that means that I'm assuming they win tonight because, I'm trying to not be so defeatist.
That is a limb.
As soon as we
that
finish,
is a limb there.
Look, as soon as we finish, I'm going to go home and watch the game. And I want this feeling out of my head that they're losing.
No,
so,
who knows about tonight, but I think they have a good chance with those other
I feel
two
like
teams,
they can sweep one of those two teams.
Agreed.
The White Sox were off to a great start. And they are not doing well right now. And a lot of times, it can go either way, but a lot of times an American League team in a National League park, the way that you construct your lineup just gets thrown off completely. So we'll see how that goes.
It's been really hot on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's what everybody's.
Nowhere.
I know, and it's been like, I went to the zoo with my son today.
Here.
It was like in the 60s. I'm like, this is great.
It's chilly for us.
Yeah,
now.
I know, we're freezing. I should have worn my Mets scarf.
We've gotten too used to this place, but
that's
unbelievable.
True.
So it's been really hot, really humid.
Yeah.
So I think that's gonna pay into.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting, the games in Miami, because they do have a retractable roof or dome, whatever. And but I feel like the ball still flies out of there anyway. I think that it'll be a good week. We'll see how Harvey does tomorrow. That's the most interesting thing. At least you have the rest of the starting staff to feel good about. Now.
Do you want to make a prediction about him?
Sure, but it's gonna be kind of a real non-committal.
Totally.
I'll say 5 innings, no decision, 2 runs.
Well,
so,
and that's the thing.
But that's a victory at this point,
right.
Well,
I want to say they pull him sooner, but
okay.
I don't want that to happen.
Right? No, I don't want it to happen.
I just think that it would really drive a message home with him if that had to happen.
I don't know. I don't know what he needs at this point. Yeah.
Save us, the rest of the team.
We gotta watch these games. By the way, what about me?
No,
what about Andrea?
It's about us.
What about Matt Ritter, who's on assignment?
I know.
I don't even know if he's going to see tomorrow's game.
We'll
but anyway.
have Matt back next week.
Yes, we will.
And we'll have a lot of guests coming on, which I'm really excited
we have some guests
about.
coming up, which as the weeks advance, we'll tell you like a week ahead of time who are some of the people are going to be on. Sometimes we're just going to have people who are fans of the show or friends that are going to join in. So that'll be good. But before we go, what do we have to talk about? Player of the week.
Yes, we do.
And I'm going to go repeating for the second week in a row, David Wright. Couple of some really nice hitting, couple of home runs. He had home runs in consecutive games. I was like, yes. Even before Friday night, I'm like, all right, David Wright's my player of the week again. Mm-hmm. Even after 3 games, basically, I'm like, yep, no problem. So I did that, and Matt told me his player of the week, Curtis Granderson, which we've already talked a lot of. There's been a lot of Grandy love on the show.
There just is Grandy love.
Yeah,
but he said it's because of the fact that he struggled and he's been struggling lately.
He's been struggling, and
the 10-year thing.
He's turned it around, and he had walk-off home runs 2 games apart. 10 years apart.
10 years apart.
Yeah, I
but
know.
my only thing with that is that's situational. You could only have that walk-off home run if you are the hitter that is, in that situation. So
yeah, there's a lot of guys who can't really have a walk-off home run.
Right.
Now, you could have a walk-off, broken bat bloop over the shortstop's head. But, for some people, a walk-off home run's never going to happen.
Right.
Andrea, your player of the week.
Well, I think we should have even announced it together because hands down, it was David Wright for this week.
Of course, we should have consulted
come
beforehand.
on. And that's what I said. I didn't want to ruin it, but I definitely
we talked
wanted
about
to
it
say,
beforehand. But that's all right.
that David Wright is my guy this week, and that's why I said Neil Walker last week because I knew David would step up, which he did.
He did, of course.
I mean,
he did.
not only with his home run to solidify one of those games, but he's one of the people that hit a home run again 2 games later to keep them, in the lead and put them on the board.
Yeah, it was after that other home run where I'm like, yep. David's my guy.
Exactly. Me too. And I didn't think that was going to be changed throughout the week. I was waiting throughout the Dodgers series. It didn't happen.
Yeah.
David Wright, you're still my guy.
All right. Well, see, you know what? Now that it's happened for me for 2 weeks, is he going to be my player of the week every week? Let's hope. If he has a great week every week, I'm going to have no problem saying that.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Especially with him only playing
he only plays like 3 games.
Yeah.
No, but I don't know. It's a lot of like, I don't even know if he's in the lineup tonight. There's always the issue where, they're trying to play him more in the day game. So since tomorrow's a day game, he's probably going to play tomorrow. But we'll see. Anyway, so we'll talk about all of this excitement next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. For the invisible Matt Ritter and for Andrea Fasano.
Yeah,
and by the way, our Twitter is at ABTV Mets. And for Christian Bladt.
On there.
Yeah.
You guys can follow me at Andy Fasano.
You can follow me at Christian DMZ and at Matt Ritter 1. He's getting the plug even though he's not here. What a great deal that is.
And comment on our YouTube page. Let us know what you think about all of this stuff between Harvey and Syndergaard.
We'll read your comments next time on the show. Absolutely. All right, so we will see you next time on Mets Wrap 360.
Thanks for watching.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.